Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
April 26th, 2018.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Savage States of America.
It is Michael reporting live from the nation's capital. I will not talk about the Bill Cosby verdict. You have to be brain dead. What are you going to do? Watch Gloria Allred and this one and that one. He did this. It was the right decision, the wrong. This is going on now for two days now. You wonder why America's stupid? It's because of the people who run the media and talking it. Why would you talk about a stupid thing like that for days on end? What can you say? They did the right thing or they did the wrong thing? You say they did the right thing, then you're going to alienate half the country. They did the wrong thing, you alienate the other half of the country. Well, you're not the jury anyway. Big deal. I'm sorry, it's over. Leave me alone. I want to talk about what I want to talk about, which is what you want to talk about, which was my visit with the President of the United States in the Oval Office for 30 minutes, not 3 seconds, not a handshake and goodbye. Substantive. Vice President next, 30 minutes, substantive. 30 minutes with McCarthy, substantive. Not sitting with a handshake and goodbye, all substantive. They know I'm a serious man, and they wanted my opinion on certain things, which I could tell you about, certain things I will choose not to tell you about. Now, I'm going to tell you why. First of all, as I was ushered, either it was before or after, one of the most impressive people of all was General Kelly, who was the Chief of Staff. Marine General, 4-star, the best. Lion-hearted. Now, again, when you don't know a person and you just see pictures or hear about him, you don't know what to expect. Total gentleman, great guy, looked up to him. So as I'm going in and waiting to go in from the antechamber, and he's going to lead me in, I think it was afterwards, because I didn't have as much time before, I saw a Marine Corps banner on his wall. And I said, "You're not a Marine, are you?" And he smiled, because he knew I knew. I said, "The Marines are my heroes." And he said, "Michael," he said, "let me show you who my hero is." Took me into another office and shut the door, and there was a memorial to his son, a Marine who gave his life in battle. I was speechless. I couldn't talk. Now, there is a man who's given the most you can give in this nation, which is your son. He gave this nation his son. I understand that General Kelly has another son who's in Marine Corps training. This is a great man. This is a truly great American. And I don't like the words great American thrown around by con men talk show hosts who are scamming people on real estate, calling themselves great Americans. Let's save it for those who are truly great Americans. And now I want to take you back to the whole story from the beginning, my thoughts on meeting with the President and Vice President. I recorded these shortly after the meeting, these thoughts, after the French state luncheon for President Macron in the State Department in the Benjamin Franklin dining room. And here are my notes. After meeting with President Trump for approximately 30 minutes, it dawned on me it was quite noteworthy in many ways. I never thought it would last more than 3 to 5 minutes, given that there were 70 dignitaries from around the world, heads of state, CEOs of major corporations, all who wanted FaceTime with President Trump. But the President was extremely inviting and cordial with my wife and I. Most noteworthy to me and most interesting, because there's so many noteworthy points, was that somewhere about 10 to 12 minutes into the meeting with the President, a red button flashed on his desk, which I thought was a nuclear launch button. He pressed the button. I really thought it was. I said, "Mr. President, did you just launch a nuclear weapon?" President Trump laughed and said, "Yeah, I launched an atomic bomb." He said, No, I'm ordering a Diet Coke." I died laughing. I thought he wanted us out of there. I thought this was a button that they put in. When they want you out of a meeting, it rings, and then the aide comes in and takes you out. He said, No. He says, "I just wanted a soda. Would you like one?" So it wasn't a nuclear launch, and it wasn't to get us out of the office. Now on to Vice President Pence. Very interesting man, very intellectually interesting. History major in college, politician by training, also previous governor of the great state of Indiana. Very skilled, but he's extremely knowledgeable and very respectful of me in particular. And I'll give you some of the details. We're in his office, and he showed me the paintings, the oil paintings. He said, these two were here when Vice President Biden was here. One of Adams and one of another former president. He said, I added these three, and he pointed at Teddy Roosevelt. And we talked about Teddy Roosevelt for a while, and I said, we should be owning the conservation movement. He says, I know that. I said, conservatives, conservation. It's our issue. It doesn't belong to Nancy Pelosi, the woman on the hill with the gold lame shoes, the spike heels. What do you think? She knows the environment? We conservatives are the conservationists, not them. They've just triangulated us with the big lie about the fake global warming story and that we hate everything on Earth and want to poison it all. So he said, yep, right, there's Teddy Roosevelt. And then I said to him, I assume you have some religion in your background. He smiled and he said, yes, of course I do. I mean, I knew he did. I know he's a very religious man. Well, for him, I brought God, Faith, and Reason. For the president, I brought Trump's War. So I gave him a copy of God, Faith, and Reason, and I inscribed it to him. He asked me to inscribe it. And then I gave him a book called Teddy and Me for his children. He said, well, we don't have any grandchildren yet, but I'll take it for myself and my wife. We're both animal lovers, and we talked about dogs. I said, Mr. President, let me read you the opening line of God, Faith, and Reason so you know where I'm coming from. And I said, I need my glasses. I can almost paraphrase myself, but I'd rather read the line exactly as I wrote it. Well, I read the first line of the book to him, which is somewhat along the lines of what you can find in the first line of God, Faith, and Reason, which says, I have never met God. I've searched for God all my life. Something like that. He listened to me very carefully, where I said, I have never seen God. I've always looked for him, type of thing. When I was through speaking that one line of my book, Vice President Pence was quite awed by the experience. And as I say, a historian he is. He gave me a pen, and he said, Dr. Savage, could you please initial next to the line that you just read to me in this office? Remember, he's a history major. He was very moved by the meeting. And I believe this is something he will enter into the congressional record when the author Michael Savage came and read to him that line from his book, God, Faith, and Reason. Maybe you own the book, maybe you don't. Not all books are equal. And again, he showed us how he had redecorated his office. He mentioned that two of the paintings, two portraits, had been in the office from Biden. And he added the following paintings, including Teddy Roosevelt. And then we talked about how the conservationists and conservatives should own the conservation movement. Well, the long and short of this meeting was that it was an extremely detailed, interesting meeting that went on for at least 30 minutes. At the end, I asked him something. And he said, well, you're the intellectual in this room, and so forth and so on. Very intelligent man, extremely well read. He told me that he reads books every night, and he reads them in detail. I just want you to hear some of this stuff. And there'll be more to be said about my meeting with Vice President Pence, who not only opened his door to his office to us on perhaps the busiest day of the year, but he was also most cordial and most respectful. Now, my visit with General Kelly, Chief of Staff, he's a very, very misunderstood man by most Americans who don't understand military men to begin with. And when we entered, as I say, he took me into that room of his where he has a memorial to his deceased son. And it was something that moved me a great deal. And all I can say is these were some of the best men in the world. It's as simple as that. We now have some of the best men in the world running this country. And we can certainly say as God what this country would have been had she won. In fact, sitting with Vice President Pence, Mrs. Savage said to him, I get up every day and thank God that you're here and that the president is here. And that she didn't win. We wake up every morning and ask ourselves, what would we be living through right now if you had not won? Well, as I was leaving, I met Mrs. General Kelly. I saw that she was getting on very well with Mrs. Savage. They were chatting away. And I turned to the general and I said, General, boy, the girls are really talking away. He said, well, she's a regular girl from the Jersey Shore. And they chatted away and had a great time. As I left, I said, thank you so much for what you and your husband do for this country and what you sacrifice. She saw my eyes. I didn't have to say any more. But there are people in this country who have given the most you could give to this nation. And they deserve a little respect from the rats with iPads who do nothing but try to undermine them. Well, there's much more, but I'm not here to speak a novel and write a novel. These are quick notes on the meeting on April 24th. There were other meetings that I cannot discuss and other topics I cannot discuss. If that's not enough, I'll tell you more at another time in the Savage Nation. Back in a minute.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. April 26th, 2018.
21 minutes after the hour, Michael Savage live from the nation's capital. Thank God the screens are not showing the Bill Cosby car or this one or that one. I'm hearing something about the world events, which is great. You know, don't melt our brains down already more than they already are, for God's sakes, right? So I'm going to continue telling you what went on there and what it's a big deal to me. I mean, I'll remember this forever. One day it'll wind up in my memoirs some way or another, but what you're hearing on this show is live, and these are the memoirs from the picture of me with the umbrella and the top hat pointing to the blood on the steps. I told you that story of the congressman versus the newsman. They had a shootout. Guess who lost? Don't underestimate journalists, because the congressman didn't live. the reporter lived. The reporter lived. The congressman was shot in the head and died somewhat thereafter. It's a great story. I mean, I don't mean in the sense of great. What a story. And leave it to Congressman Culberson to show the bloodstains for me. So I took that picture and put it up on Savage at the U.S. Capitol. It's up there on michaelsavage.com. And some other great scenes from my point of view, my perspective. Now, here's a political call I want to take. Carol on WABC Line 4, fire away.
Hi, Michael. My question is, did you get the impression that McCarthy was going to work with President Trump, or was he going to do a lot of nothing? Like No. He is the alpha and omega of Ryan. He's the opposite of Ryan. First of all, he comes from a very conservative district in California, Bakersfield area. Secondly, he has a true track record of being a conservative. Thirdly, he's on record wanting to support Trump's conservative points of view. And he's going to be the real McCoy. And I cannot wait for McCarthy to become the Speaker of the House. I think we're going to have a whole different world when he does. You're kidding me. I've never noticed him on TV to say anything that, he just seems like so Melba toast that he's going to just do exactly what Ryan had done.
Well, you know what? Let's wait and see. You never know. But, we go back to what Congressman Culberson said. Did you hear the piece where he said it's like wolves hunting caribou?
Yes.
Did you like that one? Did you hear it?
Yes, I did. I thought it was very good.
But he also said something else, Culberson, because he's a quiet man who you never hear from. He said, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. He said, Michael, I'd rather be a B-1 bomber than a B-52. Come in low and slow, right, with no signature, and don't let anyone know what you're doing. And, and when the bombs go off, you know that they hit, not before. And I think sometimes the most effective politicians are the ones you hear least from. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you think that's why he's so... Because he always seems to just fly. He's always standing behind Ryan as if he was just... like he believed everything Ryan said.
Well, look, this is called politics, Karen. I'm sorry, your name is not Karen. I'm Carol. This is called politics. Politicians have to be somewhat tricky, and they're all actors. They must be in order to survive in this world that they live in, not only with each other, but with the press and with the people. So you say, well, how do we know what he's really going to be? How do you know that? Well, let's look where he comes from. Where does Congressman McCarthy, who does he represent? He represents the most conservative district in California. Maybe the only real conservative district left in the Bakersfield area. And that should say a lot. He doesn't come from San Francisco. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand.
So I have great hope for him, and I don't think I'm going to be disappointed.
Oh, wow. I'm glad.
No, I think we have to have hope and faith in what's coming rather than what... look how the media lied to us. They made it sound like Pompeo was going to be knocked down just the other day when I was on the air, right? Oh, Pompeo's about to be voted down out of the committee. He's not going to make it. Now suddenly Secretary of State. How'd that happen? And you don't hear anything about it. The minute there's a victory for something decent like this, you hear nothing about it. They got rid of that admiral. I met the admiral, by the way, as I came out of the president's office. Guess who was standing there? Admiral Jackson was standing there. The guy looked like the real McCoy right out of Annapolis. One of the great. So he got drunk once? What are the journalists who are ripping him apart done? Tell me about the Amazon Post. I'd like to know the background of these reporters and what they've done that we don't know anything about. See, I got to tell you something right now. Maybe this should be my job. Maybe I ought to run the opposition research on the press for the government, our government, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I am so sick and tired of these people in these newspapers making believe that they're God Almighty and they have a perfectly clean background and a perfectly clean record. Who's doing the opposition research on the reporters? That's what I'd like to see. Who's doing the opposition research on the ACLU? What they do after hours and before hours, and what they do around the clock. We sit here like they're the gods and they're clean. My friends, the problem is Republicans are too good. They're too nice. They're the good ones. The other ones are the bad ones, and all they do is try to throw dirt and mud about everybody. And I think we need to get real mean and real fast get real mean. And we got to take on the opposition and use their own tactics. And if you think I didn't say this over lunch and in the meetings, you're mistaken. And let's just leave it at that. And don't think that they don't know the issues. And don't think that they're not prepared to fight. They are. Did I answer your question in a roundabout way?
Yes, you did.
You're not there, so I must have.
Thank you very much.
No, well, thank you for listening. Thank God I have someone out there who doesn't want to hear about Bill Cosby. If there's only one person who wants to hear about something other than Bill Cosby, go ahead. So, Mike on KLIF, line 5, go ahead, fire away.
Yeah, Dr. Savage, I had two things to say. Like, one, I hope that your autograph inside of Trump's war read, Dear Don, your budget needs a budget. And two, Lindsey Graham, now that you met him, it seems like your whole tone has changed about him. I mean, this is
Well, my tone has changed about him because politics does make strange bedfellows, and I need him as one of the most important senators in the country to act on protecting the wildlife and the environment. This is something I'm trying to say to you. I don't have to agree with him on everything, or I can disagree with him on most everything, but if I find things that he can help us with, wouldn't you think it's better he be my ally than my continuous antagonist?
How about none of the above? Like, the most important thing is borders, language, and culture. This guy is still Lindsey Graham.
I understand that, and he's also into the bombing situation. But if I were to take him, you know, some of the best ways to fight someone is not head-on, but zigging and zagging. Zigging and zagging. Not banging your head against the stone wall. Just remember what I said. Zig and zag. Zig and zag. Don't go straight forward. Zig and zag. And go get a zigzag.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
Look, I'm fighting a battle against a horrible group of deep-seated people, drain the swamp, that are coming up with all sorts of phony charges against me, and they're not bringing up real charges against the other side. So we have a phony deal going on, and it's a cloud over my head, and I've been able to really escape that cloud because the message now everyone knows it's a fix, okay? It's a witch hunt. Nobody has done what I've been able to do, and I did it despite the fact that I have a phony cloud over my head that doesn't exist.
He's 1,000% right, and I'm going to take some callers on this and other topics about the president that I can divulge. You know, I got to say this before we continue, whether it's today or when I come back on the air back in California. General Kelly did say something to me along these lines in passing. He's a very quiet man. He said, you know, Michael, a lot of people come through these doors in the media, and he named them, who then go back on the air, on the radio or on TV and make believe they're friends with President Trump, and they can call him at any time and that they're his friend. And he said, we don't like that. It's not the way it is. We don't want to be used that way. I said, hey, I know about that. And I'm not disappointing him because this guy is as stand-up guy as you're ever going to get. And I want him to be proud of the relationship rather than feeling any queasiness about it. So I'm not going to tell you things that I don't think are appropriate, to be frank with you. Now let's go to the callers. Ken, line 5, WABC. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, hello, Mr. Savage. Thanks for taking the call.
Yep.
Yeah, I wondered if you're talking to Mr. Trump, President Trump, that he thanked you for helping him get elected.
I'll tell you what he did say in the 30 minutes we were together at that desk. We talked. He did most of the talking. Don't get me wrong, okay? He likes to deliver. He's the president. And at some point in the middle of that 30 minutes, he opened his arms up and looked around at his staff. You know, they were in that room in the background. And he said, Dr. Savage has been with me from the beginning, and he shook his head up and down. He's been with me from the beginning. That's what he said. And I said, I'll be with you to the end. Now, what I'm saying by that is because I answered that, and I think I can tell the audience what I said to the president. I said, you know, Mr. Trump, you never forget your friends. I've known that from the beginning. But I might add, I don't think you ever forget your enemies either. Now, he didn't answer to that one, but I'm pretty sure he heard me. Does that answer your question at all, sir?
Yeah, the other thing is I saw him twice, once in the when he was running and after he was president as well. And the thing that I took away, and I want to know if you took away this too, was...
Wait, what do you mean you saw him? You were with him?
No, not personally. I went to his rally when he was running for president.
All right, so what's your main point?
When he was there, it was like he had nowhere else to go but be there with you.
Bingo. Well, you're right. That's an interesting observation. Not only to audiences, but also in person. That is right. See, I had thought he was only going to see me for 2-3 minutes and then press the button and, have us escorted out because it would have been enough for me. If I got 3 minutes with him on a day like that every CEO of the country, by the way, you have no idea was at that lunch and at that dinner. I can't even mention who was there. The top people in the country wanted to get to see him. I'm lucky I got to see him. And, make a note of this, everybody. You may hear a lot of things in the media. I was the only member of the media seated at a table during this French experience. No one else from the media was on that side of the rope line. What does that tell you about? What do you think, I got there by accident? This was approved by the president, probably directly, and I'm sure Melania. So I'm so honored, and it's in many ways, I don't think it'll ever happen again. Maybe I burned out my welcome. I don't think so. But thanks for the call. I don't know if I'm ever going to come back here. I got to tell you and get into this maybe when I get back Monday and I start complaining about Washington. I'm just exhausted from jet lag. I don't like to travel that much, to be honest. I got another 6.5 hours tomorrow flying back against the headwind. 5.5 hours coming in. I mean, no matter what you're in, it's still a pain in the neck flying. You jet lag no matter what you do. I mean, I came out on a commercial. I had a sleeper seat on Americans. Oh, that's great. It is great compared to being crushed in a little seat. But I got to tell you something. I laid down in that sleeper seat on United. I had to get right up. I felt like I was in an MRI machine. It was like a casket. I got a claustrophobic attack. I heard the clicking. It was like, I heard the magnets going off. I'm laying there on the bed. You think, oh, great. I couldn't rest for 2 seconds. I was asphyxiated in there. Now, I look over the seat, and the other guy, you can hardly see him. He's snoring away like nothing. It shows you it's different types. I didn't sleep at all last night. I'm in one of the best hotels in the city. I've been doing okay. Normally, I'm a terrible sleeper. 2 in the morning, I hear creaking over the bed. The ashtrays dropping, beds moving, like a spook house. Some woman checked in, apparently, like a nutcase, couldn't sleep all night. She was throwing ashtrays. Maybe it was Hillary. She was throwing lamps against the wall. I fall asleep in a fitful sleep. I wake up in a sweat, 7 in the morning again. Ashtrays, furniture moving, slamming. I call the front desk. I said, look, I don't mean to complain, but I need a night's sleep here. I got to work today on the radio. Can you get me a white noise machine? They didn't even know what it was. How could you? I never heard of it. I got to travel with a portable white noise machine. I have one at home. It's called the Bay, the San Francisco Bay. That's my white noise machine. I miss my dog, Teddy. And, his little half-sister died a couple of weeks ago. It's been devastating for Mrs. She's as strong and as stoic as they make it. This thing hit her so hard. I know I shouldn't say it should kill me, but thank God she's not listening right now. She's traveling somewhere. No, it really hit us. You know what she did? I don't know. This woman is so tough. Who else could live with me all these years? Last Thursday, she finds 2 little toy poodles online because someone said to her, you better replace little Tasha who died, drowned in the pool. And I didn't really advise it. She finds 2 little ones, a little white one, a little brown one, in Texas. She flies to Dallas last Thursday, buys the dogs, she checked them out, flew back with them. I fell in love with the 2 of them when I saw them. I couldn't believe it. One of them is a shaky little, scared little, one is 3 years old, one is 7. So the white one I'm calling Julie already. She's a replacement for the one who died, but like the other one who died, never liked me, barked at me, nipped at me, made everywhere. I didn't like her. Never got along with her. This one loved me immediately. I love her. The other one is a little brown poodle, a little brown thing called, I forget her name. I don't know what it is. Rosie. She's shaking like a leaf. Anyone comes near her, I think she was abused. My feeling is that the other dog, a rescue dog, was an abused animal. And I think that some kids I was told that the little white one, who's very secure, came from an older couple who could no longer care for her. She's a nice one. The other one, they didn't say from where, but they had kids. I think the kids were torturing it, because her rear hindquarters shake as she walks. She's scared to death. The tail is down like a ding, and she walks like that with a shaky tail. So people think she has dysplasia. I said, that dog does not have dysplasia. She's just scared. So I'm known as the food guy. The minute she got near me, I went in the refrigerator. I got provolone cheese, which Teddy goes crazy for. This dog never got a piece of cheese in her life. So I said, come here, honey, don't be afraid. And she nibbled like a little mouse. And she looked up like, what is that stuff? What is that stuff I just ate? And who are you that you would give me this magnificent material? Well, before that night was over, that little dog Rosie and I became the best of friends. She was not shaking as much in the rear quarters. By the next day, we took her to a grassy lawn, and she was walking around already with no shaking. When she shakes still a little out of fear because she was abused, I think. But I can guarantee you, when I get home this weekend, I'm going to take her to a grassy lawn with Julie and Teddy and Toby, who's the other guy. He's my fat little dog son. I never told you about Toby. He's in Teddy and me. He is the Havanese dog. He's like an overweight kid. Like, what if you have a 9-year-old boy who's fat and can't play ball? You still love him, right? Toby's my fat son. Unathletic. He's big. He's lumbering. He doesn't do anything right. He barks whenever I come in the house. Teddy is this little nothing 14-year-old poodle. Toby could kill him with one bite. Toby is terrified of Teddy. Teddy attacks him, yells at him, barks at him, does the male dominant thing on him, and Toby takes it. I say to him, Teddy, stop it. Your brother could kill you. You know, like these fat kids in school that you pushed around. Ever remember that in grade school? There's always like a pudgy kid who everyone pushed around. Then one day he got mad and beat everybody up. That's what Toby's like. And I'm afraid I don't want to be that day. I don't want to be there that day that Toby turns on Teddy. So anyway, yeah, I got these 2 dogs. They're waiting for me. I'm going to come back and feed them their cheese and bread and stuff like that. Now let's go back to the important stuff like the president and the vice president rather than toy poodles. Okay. Can I talk about that? Yes, the Churchill bust is back in the Oval. Yeah, it was. I think it was behind the president. In fact, let's look at the picture together on michaelsavage.com, because I don't know for sure. Someone's asking that. I'm going to the top of the page. They did give me presidential M&Ms, boxes of them made up by the Mars Candy Company as a souvenir, and some kind of medallions. I don't know. I don't see the bust. I think it was there. I noticed it somewhere. Churchill was there. I don't know where, but he was there. Joe on WABC line 4, what's your question or comment about my visit to Washington?
Yeah, I just wanted to know how the security. When I hear all these stories of people hopping over the fence, is he protected? Please tell me.
That is a great question. I'm certainly not going to divulge anything about the interior security because it would be inappropriate. Let's just say this. Let's start at the outside the perimeter, okay? As I leave my hotel and I look at Lafayette Park, which is the park adjacent to the White House, you got rings of security that are invisible and some that is visible. You got Secret Service in shorts running around. You got park police on bicycles. You got 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rungs around that White House. And I did not see any idiots jumping the fence. I saw a few moronic protesters against guns and the Falun Gong, which I happen to agree with, you know. But there's no, I'm surprised there's no big nutcases here. Interior-wise, no one's getting into that house. The people's house, no one's getting in that place that doesn't belong there. Let me tell you that. Feel confident that we have the best security in the entire world. I can guarantee that. Does that make you feel better?
And Michael Savage for vice president, where Prince is the president in almost 7 years. Michael?
I'll be too old for it then. Well, I don't know. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. We don't know anything about tomorrow, and there's no such thing as too old for anything. Let me tell you that. I don't feel too old for anything, but you're asking a critical question at a critical juncture of a critical show on a critical day. It's 45 minutes after the hour. I got to take a break, and I'm going to tell you the answer in like 1 minute what's going through my mind. Like, why did God bring me here? Why did all of the doors open? All of the doors open. You're listening to me. The president, the vice president, the speaker, the congressman, one after the other. It's as though this didn't happen by chance. And it happened by fate, but I also think nothing happens by chance or by fate. I also think that there were discussions on the inner about bringing me in at this time for reasons even I do not understand. Okay, let's put it to you that way. I don't think people of this level just have you in to shake you in and give you a candy bar. I think that there's something coming over the horizon that I can't even touch. I can't even see it. But as the psychic said a few weeks on this show, let tomorrow happen, because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I hope it's all good, because it's all about America, and I think that my message has finally resonated to the highest level of this government. They know where the message came from, and they want maybe more of this message from the man who wrote it. That's what I hope. This is the Savage Nation, back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Mr. Savage goes to Washington. Well, Mr. Savage goes to San Francisco tomorrow. The sewer of America. You know, one of the congressmen said to me, isn't it interesting that cities that are run by Democrats like Pelosi are the filthiest, most dangerous, dirty cities on earth? They look worse than third world cities. They look like a bombed out Benghazi. And that cities that are run by Republicans are generally clean and safe. I said, no kidding. And yet, all you do is hear from them. Pelosi, how wonderful she is. She ever walk out of a door? Imagine that. There's a story today that what's going on there in one subway terminal in San Francisco. I'm going back to that again. Junkies take over San Fran subway station, shooting up junk in open, slumped along filthy walkways on the Drudge Report. It's disgusting. No sane city on earth would permit this to happen. But there is no sane city run by Nancy Pelosi or Dianne Feinstein. Anyway, I am here for you, and I'm going to take some more calls in Washington before the show ends. I would like to get you on the show, and thank you all for listening and for getting me here. Let me put it to you that way. I wouldn't have been invited to see the president, the vice president, and probably incoming Speaker McCarthy was it not for you, the audience. They know what the audience is. I mean, they're politicians. They also know that the books are important, the ideas are important, but the people are the most important thing. And they want me as almost a conduit to speak for them to you and speak for you to them. I think that's what it comes down to. Matt on KLIF, line 1, Savage Nation, last call of the day. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Savage, I think I speak for everyone in that I'm just very thankful that you went on this trip. It seems like a couple of weeks ago you were kind of coming from a negative place, and now it's amazing. It's like you're energized, you're reinvigorated. It's almost at a B12 shot.
No, it's very interesting. Travel, as hard as it is, if it's done for a purpose, is very invigorating. This was for a purpose. The entire purpose of this trip was to attend the French state luncheon for Macron, hosted by Vice President Pence, or I wouldn't have come, okay? All the other stuff, visiting with the president, the vice president, McCarthy, was not on the table until this week. I don't know if you know that. It was all added on. Once they knew I was here, certain people made certain calls and doors are opened. But that was not here before I got here. I don't know if anyone knows that. It was all added on. Once the president knew I was here, he said, I was told point blank, he wants to see you. Because I asked right to the last day, are you sure he really wants to see me? And I got a text from people. I wish I could tell you their names, but I wouldn't. You could put my finger in a vice, I wouldn't tell you who's texted me. They said, your trip was a huge hit. Everyone loves you. I'm going to go to the text. I'm not going to misquote myself. I shouldn't even say it. Here. I won't say who, but someone of renown said after the visit, POTUS loved his time with you. Do you know how important that is? Because you never really know how you hit it off with people. You never really know how you hit it off with people. Because I learned a lot on this trip. I learned what people are and what they aren't. I was not here for any reason other than to attend the state luncheon. Why did I want to go for the luncheon? My son even said to me, what, are you crazy? You're going to spend all that money to have lunch? He's very pragmatic. I said, to me, it's a historic event. It's the first state dinner of this administration and the first state luncheon of this administration. I want to be there. And I was there. And I went to the mountain. And believe me, there's more to come. This is the Savage Nation, another hour from the nation's capital. Right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Well, welcome to hour number 3 of the Savage Nation. We'll be talking about my visit with the President, Vice President, and most likely the next Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, as well as my attendance at the French State Luncheon for Mr. Macron. I also had time with Congressman Culberson and a tour of the Capitol building as we ran in and out of the congressional dining room. He showed me the steps where there's the blood of a congressman who had been in a shootout in the 1870s with a reporter. Never underestimate reporters because the congressman lost, got shot in the head. We've been talking about that, so now we're going to continue talking about these important notes and not talk much about the Cosby verdict because there's nothing I can say about it that has not yet been said thousands and thousands of times. Presenting the President Trump's war in the White House is a big deal, especially since his campaign was based to a great extent upon the messaging in that book, and he's tried his best to get much of that done, and the vermin in the media trying to make it about him, not about the message, because they hate the message. Never forget what that's about. You think Pelosi wants borders? You think she wants language? You think she wants culture? No. But again, I don't want to get negative. Maybe it's not a big deal to you, but you know what? It's a big deal to me. My meeting with Senator Lindsey Graham, the chance meeting, which was unbelievable. First of all, he's a senator, obviously, and I'm in the, where was this? This was at the, it was at the Macron luncheon the day before. The same day, I don't remember, it's a blur, the 24th, that day. It was at the luncheon for President Macron, but the cocktail party before the lunch ran for an hour. It was jammed with diplomats and this and that. So I'm standing there talking to different people. A congressman came up from North Carolina, one of the nicest people on earth, and he and his wife and myself and my wife talked for a while about many things. Well, out of nowhere comes this guy, affable man. I never, in person, doesn't look like. And he says, "This is Senator Graham. Do you know Michael Savage Talk Show?" So he shook my hand. We looked at each other. Now, we were, we're antagonists. I've called him every name under the sun. I've called him Pinko Lindsay. I've called him Pinko Graham. I've called him warmonger, right? Here's this guy smiling, and I'm being affable. I mean, I'm a human being. But when here's the thing. Well, let me tell you what happened. So we start to talk, and all of a sudden we find out we have something in common. Within a millisecond, we both want to save the elephants. We both want to stop the importation of the ivory. He is so passionate about this issue. And he invited me to go to Africa with him and Bono on a congressional delegation, congressional plane, on this issue and the environment. And he's so into this. And there are many others in Congress who were into this. And now we're talking. We got along great because we both want to do what we can for the environment and for the animals. So about 10 minutes into chatting and having a drink, he says, Michael, he said, before I met you, I thought you were effing crazy. I said, well, Senator, let me tell you something. I know you're effing crazy because of your policies, but I still like you. Well, he laughed. This is the thing about him. The guy's a great guy. People who are big cannot really be insulted. It's the small people who get insulted very easily, I'll tell you that. These guys have a skill. It's like a duck on water. You insult them, it rolls right off them. You got to have a very thick skin to be in politics. And he must have a real thick skin. So anyway, we would talk, 10, 12 minutes about the animals, and we're going to work together, and this is great. And he said, how did you get the religion on this? I said, how? It's the most important thing in the world. I said, these creatures depend upon us. Do we want to be the last generation on Earth to see them annihilated by the vermin who are killing them off so the Chinese can buy ivory? No. So we go on, And as I say, he wants me to come to Africa with him and Bono and a lot of other celebrities. I don't know if I will go. I don't like traveling to begin with, and I don't think I'm going to go. But the point is, we left friends, and he took out his iPhone. You have a card? No, I said, I don't have a card. I'm a talk show host. You have a card, sir? No, don't carry him. Don't have him. So we're both older guys. Now, this is very funny. I said, why don't you put your iPhone number in my iPhone? He said, I don't know how to do that. I said, well, I grew up on a Royal Portable. I don't really know how to do it either. So next to us is a big Secret Service guy, younger guy. I said, sir, do you know how to put someone's phone number? I know it's nothing for an 8-year-old into another iPhone. Yes. He says, or you go to contacts, blah, blah, blah. So Senator Graham gave me his cell phone number. He said, now you call me anytime you want on this issue. We'll talk. So as he's leaving, I said, how come we got along so great? How is this even possible? He turns to me and he says, because I grew up in a pool room that my parents owned, above which was a liquor store which they owned. So I looked at him and I said, no wonder you can talk to anyone on the planet. And then as he left, I looked at him and I said, Senator Graham, let's shoot pool fast, Eddie. He got a kick out of that one. But it just shows you something, is that meeting people in person is the key to diplomacy and ending enmity. So many of us are prejudiced towards our opponents because we don't know what they are. There's no humanity. We do it. I do it. The other guys do it. We vilify each other. But, you know, meeting someone in person and looking in their eyes is the best way to get to peace, not war. And it tells me a lesson about diplomacy and how important it is to stop war and start peace. If Lindsey Graham and I, who are opponents on virtually every issue except the one that we found in common, saving the elephants, not importing ivory tusks, saving the lions, and we have commonality. And I said, Senator Graham, remember, politics does make strange bedfellows indeed. Many years ago, I worked with Charles Schumer to stop the Dubai ports deal. He said, I remember that, Michael. I do. I said, well, then you and I have to get together on this because we are a very strong force. And if I name the other people who came over, you're not going to believe the power of these people and what committees they run. And we're going to do something about this. Because I said, Senator Graham, if we can save one herd, it's as though we saved the entire species. They're depending upon us. But as President Trump said today, I believe, that in the past Iran threatened us. They're not threatening us right now. He said, we'll threaten them. We need a tough man to run this country, and he's the man for the job. He's a godsend. He came along right at the right time. I was watching a show on PBS the other night in the hotel room late at night when I came back. And the show was about warfare through the ages, whether it was the Aztecs versus the Mayans or anywhere else on earth. Go back through any historical period. And the show said that in every time there's always been a nation or a state that had a lust for power and a desire to conquer and the technology to back it, that conquered a neighboring state, overran and conquered a neighboring state, and as a result advanced the civilization in that area. I could not believe what I was listening to. And the narrator was saying, I don't know who wrote the script, that in every time there are people we need. In other words, in this country, we need someone right now who has a lust for power and the ability to carry it out. In other words, for this country to survive. That's just what we need after 8 years of a president called Obama who had a lust for personal power and a lust to destroy the power of this nation. I think he had a lust for power for other nations. That was the unfortunate truth. But you won't hear about that from Wolf Blitzer, will you? They'll never give you the lowdown on what that man was actually about and what he was doing. You talk about treason and a traitor. So we're making up for lost time. So Trump rebuilds the military, which we need. We need a dominant military to survive in this world. Yes, and to make sure we're dominant in this world. And to export our technology and our culture to the world. Or we'll be overrun. Now, having said that, don't assume I'm saying that all immigrants are bad. I didn't say that at all. I'm an immigrant son. I'll give you another story in a minute or less. I'm in a cab going somewhere. I think I was going to the Capitol. Yeah, we're at Capitol Hill yesterday for the lunch. So it was a Somali driver, an older gentleman. And within the 10-minute ride, we got to talk a little bit. I didn't know where he was from or whatever. I think he said Somalia, this and that. We're coming near the Capitol. He looks up at the Capitol building as he got near there. He said, "Sir, that is a beautiful, beautiful building. That is the most beautiful sight on earth. That is such a beautiful building." I said, "Well, I'm an immigrant son. I know what you mean." He said, "It's a hope for all of the world." I said, "Well, where are you from?" And within 3 minutes, he told me, He's from Somalia. He has 4 children. So I was afraid to say, well, now they're going to have to work hard. He's, oh, sir, my first one went to Johns Hopkins. She's a very famous doctor. My second one went to Harvard Law School. He's going to be a famous lawyer. And he went down the list of all of his 4 children. This is a humble cab driver from Somalia. I said, sir, you are the astronaut of your family like my grandfather was. You should be very proud of yourself. He said, sir, I am, and thanks for saying that. On that note, I shall say this is a great nation, the greatest nation on earth, a nation of immigrants, good immigrants, legal immigrants. That's the lifeblood of the nation. But we don't need the world's leeches, do we? Because we cannot afford them. Do you understand that? Do you finally get it? That the lifeboat is full, and if you take them all on, we will all go down with the ship? You know, I turned the TV on during the break. You know why the brains of the nation are gone? Because you're watching the Cosby thing on TV. What can you learn from it? What can your soul get from that? You're sitting here like a moron. Cosby this, Cosby that. The whole country on sex and scandals. Why? Because the idiots who run the media understand how to jerk your chain and keep you down. To mix your brain up like a mix master. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm here for one reason. I have a purpose. This is a purpose-driven radio show. It's been that way for many years. One more on this before we go on to the real McCoy here. I haven't given you any of the real details yet. I will suggest you go to michaelsavage.com for some of the great pictures. I have a whole panel now of a thing called Savage DC Scenes. I took one this morning of a statue with a Civil War cannon and a statue of Jackson, a great statue. I couldn't wait for the idiots to come and say, tear the statue down, because he burped sometime in 1814. My visit with President Trump in the Oval Office. I'm going to read this to you because I want to get it right. Somewhere about 10 to 12 minutes into the meeting, there was a device on his desk with a red button. The red button started to flash. In the middle of talking about this and that, the president reaches for the button and pressed it. I thought it was a nuclear launch. I said, Mr. President, did you just launch a nuclear weapon? President Trump laughed and he said, yeah, I just launched an atomic bomb. He said, no, I'm ordering a Diet Coke. I died laughing. I thought he wanted us out of there. I thought that the button was something that they put in to get visitors out. When they wanted to go, it rings red to tell the aides to come in and take the people out. He said, no, it was not that. It was to order a diet soda from his valet. I swear to you. I mean, just picture being there in the Oval Office. I mean, everything is majestic, no matter who's in that desk, right? This is a place like no other. It is the mountains. So you're sitting and talking to the most powerful man on earth, and there's a device on the desk, and a button starts to flash red, and he presses it. Wouldn't you think that a city was just smoke somewhere? No, it was to order a Diet Coke. It's a true story. What can I tell you? Look, if you're disappointed I'm not talking about the Cosby thing, you can listen to any moron in radio right now, because it's the dumbest topic on the earth. What is there to say about the Cosby verdict? Sure, if I wanted to fill up airspace and talk to airheads, do you think that was a fair verdict, an unfair verdict? I'd do that for 2 hours. You know what? I'd retire rather than do that. I'll leave that to those who can't do anything else.
I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
It is Michael reporting live from the nation's capital. I will not talk about the Bill Cosby verdict. You have to be brain dead. What are you going to do? Watch Gloria Allred and this one and that one. He did this. It was the right decision, the wrong. This is going on for two days now. You wonder why America's stupid? It's because of the people who run the media and talking it. Why would you talk about a stupid thing like that for days on end? What can you say? They did the right thing or they did the wrong thing? You say they did the right thing, then you're going to alienate half the country. They did the wrong thing, you alienate the other half of the country. Well, you're not the jury anyway. Big deal. I'm sorry, it's over. Leave me alone. I want to talk about what I want to talk about, which is what you want to talk about, which was my visit with the President of the United States in the Oval Office for 30 minutes, not 3 seconds, not a handshake and goodbye. Substantive. Vice President next, 30 minutes, substantive. 30 minutes with McCarthy, substantive. Not sitting with a handshake and goodbye, all substantive. They know I'm a serious man, and they wanted my opinion on certain things, which I could tell you about, certain things I will choose not to tell you about. Now, I'm going to tell you why. First of all, as I was ushered, either it was before or after, one of the most impressive people of all was General Kelly, who was the chief of staff. Marine General, 4-star, the best. Lion-hearted. Now, again, when you don't know a person and you just see pictures or hear about him, you don't know what to expect. Total gentleman, great guy, looked up to him. So as I'm going in and waiting to go in from the antechamber, and he's going to lead me in, I think it was afterwards, because I didn't have this much time before, I saw a Marine Corps banner on his wall. And I said, "You're not a Marine, are you?" And he smiled, because he knew I knew. I said, "The Marines are my heroes." And he said, "Michael," he said, "let me show you who my hero is." Took me into another office and shut the door, and there was a memorial to his son, a Marine who gave his life in battle. I was speechless. I couldn't talk. Now, there is a man who's given the most you can give in this nation, which is your son. He gave this nation his son. I understand that General Kelly has another son who's in Marine Corps training. This is a great man. This is a truly great American. And I don't like the words great American thrown around by con men talk show hosts who are scamming people on real estate, calling themselves great Americans. Let's save it for those who are truly great Americans. My visit with Vice President Pence. The truth comes with its own shield around it. That's a quote of mine that Vice President Pence really liked. He had said to me, "Dr. Savage," he said, "you're very brave to speak out the way you do all these years." I said, "Vice President Pence, sometimes I wonder, but I often think that the truth comes with its own shield around it. The truth is its best defense. How can they hate you for telling the truth? Even your opposition knows you're telling the truth. They don't hate you for it. The only reason we ever hate the opposition is when we know they're lying." I'll give you an example. 2 days ago when I was on the radio, Pompeo was up for nomination, Secretary of State. We heard he was going to lose. The vermin in the media. That's vermin, by the way, is too good a word for them. Vermin is too high a word for them. Everything they could, they threw at Pompeo. No good this, no good that. The guy was a great American. I asked you on this show, call the show if you don't like Pompeo. Give me one reason. No one called. So now he's confirmed. There's not one word that he's confirmed. Instead, they destroyed a great man, Trump's doctor. They destroyed him with lies and videotape. Sex, lies, and videotape. That's what they specialize in. But there are people in this country who have given the most you could give to this nation, and they deserve a little respect from the rats with iPads who do nothing but try to undermine them. Well, there's much more, but I'm not here to speak a novel or write a novel. These are quick notes on the meeting on April 24th. There were other meetings that I cannot discuss and other topics I cannot discuss. If that's not enough, I'll tell you more at another time in the Savage Nation. Back in a minute. Up next on the Savage Nation from Washington, D.C. is a collection of several of President Trump's visits to this program as he was campaigning for the presidency. We'll listen to it. We'll decide which things he has been able to accomplish thus far and which things have been blocked by the obstructionists known as Democrats. Let's listen. Run the country like a business, not an empire. There's only one man I know who can do it, and that is Donald Trump. Donald, welcome to the Savage Nation. Thanks for being with us. When you and I spoke, I asked you straight up. I didn't mince words. I said to you, where do you stand on tariffs with regard to Chinese goods? And you didn't blink. You didn't mince words. Tell the audience what you think should be done.
What I say to you, very simply, is that I would absolutely tax all products coming in from China. Then you'll say to me, "Oh, but don't they loan us a lot of money by buying our bonds?" And I would respond by saying, if you tax their products, those bonds will be paid off very, very rapidly.
What tax? What percent?
I would say 25%, and I would say a firm, strong 25%. And then, you know what, when they start behaving properly, you know, we're building cities in China. We're building China. We're rebuilding the whole place because what they're doing is they're taking all of our jobs.
Well, that's because of NAFTA and the WTO. Now, we on the conservative side in the media were opposed to that in the 90s. We opposed NAFTA. We opposed WTO. We were called crazy at the time. Would you repeal any of these international agreements if you were president, Mr. Trump?
Well, NAFTA has been a total disaster. It's just been unbelievable how horrible it's been. You go up and look at New England, all you see is empty factories that are just decaying buildings.
Yes.
And those people moved out, and they moved over to Mexico and other places. And you take a look at what's happening. The truth is the United States is a whipping post for the rest of the world. And the reason is because our people aren't smart enough or tough enough to do something about it.
One of my callers, Rich in Pittsburgh, is calling and he's saying in China they tariff our products. Is that true?
Totally true. I can tell you about a steel company, which I'm to mention, but I can tell you about a steel company, and I'm talking about a big one, where they're not allowed to go into China and sell steel. Look at General Electric recently, where General Electric was forced to give up all their technology and all their secrets in order to do business in China. I mean, it's terrible what's going on, and we do nothing.
Donald, let me ask you this, and this is a big one. When you become president, would you eliminate funding for sanctuary cities?
I wouldn't have sanctuary cities, no. I think it's great. When you look at San Francisco, whoever even heard of sanctuary cities until, frankly, Kate, when Kate was killed and shot in the back by an illegal immigrant, everyone was hearing for the first time about sanctuary cities, this guy with the sanctuary city. No, that's sanctuary cities. If there's crime, there's crime. You know, they're totally protected with these sanctuary cities. It's like they can do whatever. They're almost like diplomats. They can do whatever they want. No, sanctuary.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They have diplomatic immunity. Well, it started with Nancy Pelosi. She was one of the greatest boosters of sanctuary city laws because, frankly, the entire Democrat machine lives off the illegal alien vote. Without the illegal alien vote, I don't think they'd be where they are today, Donald. That's why I asked that important question. Donald, there's a great article finally that came out about you. Someone said something good in the New York Post. Steve Cuozzo, C-U-O-Z-Z-O, how Donald Trump helped save New York City. And although I've supported you, Donald, I didn't know that this is true, that you took this city from the garbage can and you took a chance on it in the mid-'70s through the mid-'90s when very few would do that. And you rebuilt that city.
Yeah, I just read that article, and Steve is a fantastic guy and a great writer, and it was very nice that he wrote that article. He actually called me and said, I'd like to write an article because you've done so much to save New York, and I did it at a time when it wasn't fashionable in many cases, and, it's been great for the city, and I'm very happy, and it was very nice that somebody would write that kind of an article.
I mean, people listening across America should know that Donald Trump created something between 59th and 72nd Street. There was nothing but old railway yards. It's now a home to over 10,000 people. He built the Trump International Hotel and Tower, which I stayed in, by the way, on my last trip. It's a fantastic, beautiful building. That's the old Gulf and Weston building. This was an area filled with vagrants in Central Park. You freshened up that area. I'm going to go down the list. I don't care if people say I'm being too nice to you. You created the Wallman Skating Rink in 1986. 40 Wall Street, 1995. Trump Plaza, 167 East 61st Street, completed in 1984. That's before half of these candidates were even born. You were doing these things. Do you care to comment on the job picture if you become president?
Well, Michael, we're going to bring jobs back from China. We're going to bring them back from Mexico. We're going to bring them back from all of these countries. I mean, so many countries have taken our jobs. We're going to bring them back from everyone and every place. And we're going to get our country going again. We've lost millions of jobs. We've lost thousands and thousands of factories and companies, and it's disgraceful what's going on, and we're bringing them back, Michael.
What is your tax plan? Is there a short version of it that we can hear about on the Savage Nation today?
My tax plan brings taxes way down. First of all, it simplifies just to 4 groups instead of having 7, and, they have so many different groups and with all of the things involved. Everybody needs to go out and hire CPAs from Washington or the whole thing is crazy, lawyers. My plan simplifies it and cuts the taxes tremendously for the middle class and also cuts the taxes for businesses so businesses can compete. They can't even compete now, Michael. And
right.
If you look at taxes in this country, we're the highest taxed nation in the world. My tax proposal cuts them far lower than anybody else, and it's going to reignite the country to start working again.
It is do you know that in Russia and China there is no inheritance tax, Mr. Trump? I'm sure you're aware of that.
Well, I've heard that, but they have other problems.
Well, no, I understand that, but what an incentive it would be in America if we could eliminate such an onerous tax on money that was already taxed. It's crazy. What if I work all my life and I have a family farm and I want to leave it to my grandchildren and I give it to the grandchild and it's worth $1 million and she has to pay $500,000 in taxes and she doesn't have it and she has to sell the farm in order to instead of inheriting it? That doesn't sound too fair to me. But let's move on to the next topic, which is not only that, but the trade war against China. So everyone's saying, oh, Donald Trump's idea of a trade war with China. I don't see it as a trade war. You called for a common sense set of tariffs, which I've called for in 3 of my last books. Why is that a trade war?
First of all, it's not a trade war. By the way, getting back to your other, though, just for a second, it's called the death tax, which is really what it is, and it's double taxation. Some people could say it's triple taxation, but it is absolutely killing people that have farms and other businesses. They leave them to their children, and the children have to sell their business, oftentimes at a tremendous discount in order to pay the tax. As far as China is concerned, Michael, they are very upset with me because I'm the first one that said that China is ripping off the United States, and they actually issued a release from the Chinese government, the highest officials, saying that Donald Trump is wrong. Well, the fact is we are in a trade war already. The trade war is lost by us because China charges tremendous tax and makes it impossible practically for our companies to go into China, but we open up our borders to China and their stuff pours in and we charge them no tax. So it isn't. And by the way, we have a trade deficit with China of $505 billion.
But if you put on tariffs, they're certainly not going to stop selling to us. What they're going to do is grumble about it and pay the tax very happily, wouldn't they? Because they need the market here.
Happen, number one. Number two, we're going to start creating jobs in our country because they got there because they devalued their currency. That's how they got there, and that's why nobody's making anything in our country anymore. So they devalued their currency. That's how they got there in the first place, which in theory is virtually illegal and certainly morally illegal. They're not supposed to be doing it. They do it every chance they get. And I don't know, I hope you saw it, but I was very proud of it, where the Chinese government issued a statement about Trump yesterday, and they actually say that we're the ones that are breaking the rules and regulations, and it's not. They charge tax to go over there, and they make it impossible practically for our companies to compete and to go over to China. And
absolutely.
Frankly, we lose so much money dealing with China, we have no choice but to do what we have to do, and the politicians aren't smart enough to realize it.
Donald, in my last book, Government Zero, I made a mention of the fact that we need to elect someone to run America like a business, not an empire. And so you have a lot of people saying, well, what? Donald Trump's only a businessman. We don't need a businessman. Why don't we need a businessman? Isn't that the essence of the popularity of your campaign? Is that the common sense business approaches that you have applied in your own business dealings is what you'd like to apply running America? Isn't that fundamentally what you're saying?
It is, Michael, but we also have to have big heart. You know, it is somewhat different than business because you really need a lot of things. You need tremendous compassion, tremendous heart. We have to take care of Social Security. We have to take care of Medicare. We have to take care of our people. We have to come up with, a plan to replace Obamacare, which is a total disaster. We'll repeal it and replace it. So you could make the case it's very similar in certain ways, certainly with budgetary things, but it's also... You need heart, you need compassion, you need a lot of leadership that is a somewhat...
Yeah, but Donald, we can't take care of the world's poor, who Obama is importing by the millions in order to get them to vote Democrat for the next 200 years. Of course we need compassion, but it's for our own citizens, not for the whole... We can't give away our tax dollars for the world, can we?
We can't, and we're in trouble, and we're bringing in people from Syria that we have no idea who they are, where they come from. There's no documentation. They could be ISIS. They could be who knows what they are. And
we're going
to have problems like you've never seen before. Now, if I get elected, we're going to solve those problems. Believe me, we're going to solve them. We're going to solve them fast. But we have a potential to have problems like this country has never seen before based on what Obama's doing.
You have been misinterpreted as an isolationist by globalists, and I described your philosophy as America first. And I said, Mr. Trump's foreign policy is based more on making America's interest dominant, not subservient. Isn't that more or less it?
100%. I'm not an isolationist, but I don't want to do business if we're going to lose $500 billion. We have a trade deficit with China, $505 billion, okay? $505 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Balance it. It's got to be balanced. I mean, we're not looking for the end of the world, but it's got to be balanced. And I'm not an isolationist, Michael, at all. You know that. But I'm a person that wants fairness for our country and for our people and for our taxpayers. And we just can't continue to go on like this. And I want fairness.
What do you think is Obama's real reason for flooding America with Muslims from Syria right now when 30 states say no?
Well, it's hard to imagine, and obviously some people think it's evil intentions. I think personally it's incompetence, but, regardless, a lot of people think it's evil intentions. Do you know if you're a Christian, and this is before this problem, if you were a Christian in Syria, it was virtually impossible to come into our country. If you were a Muslim in Syria, it was one of the easiest ways to come into the United States. I don't know if you've ever heard that. And
oh, I know. You know that there was a Syrian Christian family in San Diego that was already here with relatives, and he deported them about 3 weeks ago?
If you're a Christian, it's very hard to get into this country. And if you are a Muslim, it's very easy. And if you come from Syria being a Muslim, now, if you think of it, if you're president, the Christians are having their heads cut off, and those people found it almost impossible. I mean, it's not me saying it. Statistically, very, very hard for a Christian from Syria to get in before this whole big mess that we have right now.
Thank you, Donald Trump. Good luck. God be with you. Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Vice President Pence, very interesting man, very intellectually interesting, history major in college, politician by training, also previous governor of the great state of Indiana. Very skilled, but he's extremely knowledgeable and very respectful of me in particular. We're in his office, and he showed me the paintings, the oil paintings. He said, you know, these two were here when Vice President Biden was here, one of Adams and one of another former president. He said, I added these three, and he pointed at Teddy Roosevelt. And we talked about Teddy Roosevelt for a while, and I said, we should be owning the conservation movement. He says, I know that. I said, conservatives, conservation. It's our issue. It doesn't belong to Nancy Pelosi, the woman on the hill with the gold lame shoes, the spike heels. What do you think? She knows the environment? We conservatives are the conservationists, not them. They've just triangulated us with the big lie about the fake global warming story and that we hate everything on Earth and want to poison it all. So he said, yep, right, there's Teddy Roosevelt. And then I said to him, I assume you have some religion in your background. He smiled and he said, yes, of course I do. I mean, I knew he did. I know he's a very religious man. Well, for him, I brought God, Faith, and Reason. For the president, I brought Trump's War. So I gave him a copy of God, Faith, and Reason, and I inscribed it to him. He asked me to inscribe it. And then I gave him a book called Teddy and Me for his children. He said, well, we don't have any grandchildren yet, but I'll take it for myself and my wife. We're both animal lovers, and we talked about dogs. I said, Mr. President, let me read you the opening line of God, Faith, and Reason so you know where I'm coming from. And I said, I need my glasses. I can almost paraphrase myself, but I'd rather read the line exactly as I wrote it. Well, I read the first line of the book to him, which is somewhat along the lines of what you can find in the first line of God, Faith, and Reason, which says, I have never met God. I've searched for God all my life. Something like that. He listened to me very carefully, where I said, I have never seen God. I've always looked for him, type of thing. When I was through speaking that one line of my book, Vice President Pence was quite awed by the experience. And as I say, a historian he is. He gave me a pen, and he said, Dr. Savage, could you please initial next to the line that you just read to me in this office? Remember, he's a history major. He was very moved by the meeting, and I believe this is something he will enter into the congressional record when the author Michael Savage came and read to him that line from his book, God, Faith, and Reason. Maybe you own the book, maybe you don't. Not all books are equal. And again, he showed us how he had redecorated his office. He mentioned that two of the paintings, two portraits, had been in the office from Biden, and he added the following paintings, including Teddy Roosevelt. And then we talked about how the conservationists and conservatives should own the conservation movement. Well, the long and short of this meeting was that it was an extremely detailed, interesting meeting that went on for at least 30 minutes. At the end, I asked him something. And he said, well, you're the intellectual in this room, and so forth and so on. Very intelligent man, extremely well-read. He told me that he reads books every night, and he reads them in detail. I just want you to hear some of this stuff. And there'll be more to be said about my meeting with Vice President Pence, who not only opened his door to his office to us on perhaps the busiest day of the year, but he was also most cordial and most respectful. Now, my visit with General Kelly, Chief of Staff, he's a very, very misunderstood man by most Americans who don't understand military men to begin with. And when we entered, as I say, he took me into that room of his where he has a memorial to his deceased son. And it was something that moved me a great deal. And all I can say is these were some of the best men in the world. It's as simple as that. We now have some of the best men in the world running this country. And we can certainly say as God what this country would have been had she won. In fact, sitting with Vice President Pence, Mrs. Savage said to him, I get up every day and thank God that you're here and that the president is here and that she didn't win. We wake up every morning and ask ourselves, what would we be living through right now if you had not won?
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.